call the meeting to order.
Aaron's just chit-chatting.
Called it. Let's do it.
Everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seriously, wheels are falling off the bus.
Okay. Alice, roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, Joanne, Alderwoman Bartleson is our mayor pro tem tonight. The mayor could not be here with us, and with our current ordinance that rotates every quarter, the honor is Joanne, so
Thank you for the honor. I think.
Alderman Petrakos?
Here.
Alderman Capodono?
Here.
Alderman Galogly?
Here.
Alderman Smith is absent. Alderman Deskin?
Here.
Alderman Vandermeer?
Here.
Alderman Peretta?
Here.
Alderwoman Bartleson.
Here.
7 present.
Alrighty. We're going to start with the shop Lockport business spotlight, only because we have Merv here to talk about the spaghetti dinner. We're going to put you on right away.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Thank you for having me here to talk. Thanks. So Lockport Love is actually hosting a spaghetti dinner. It's this Sunday from 3 to 7. Kids 10 and under are going to be free. It's $5 per person suggested donation, but if you want to give more, you can. I just want to take a minute and thank Alderman Peretta because he sold 100 tickets. So if everybody, yes, you deserve that. You sold a lot of tickets.
Most of that was my wife, Catherine, and my daughter, Julie. I had a little
But I mean,
part
the
of
whole
it.
family, you guys just sold a ton of
Because
tickets.
of Julie, we broke the 120 mark.
I didn't sell that many. So anyways, if you don't have cash, we actually will have a card acceptor, so you can use your credit card there if you'd like to. And if you don't want to stay, there will be to-go containers. You can take your portion to go with you. So plenty of options for you. I think everybody knows what Lockport Love does, local charity. It reaches out to local families that are in need. You can nominate a family or an individual if they need some financial assistance. Thanks for your time. That's everything I need to say. Anything you want me to mention? Anything else? Oh, hello, American Legion, sorry. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, any liaison reports? Okay. City Clerk's report.
Yes, thank you. I have included in your packet the resolution for review and release executive sessions. It was from January 2006 through 2008. You did not receive the memo because Donna did not receive it. I'm having issues with my email, so I placed it at your location today. Does anyone have any questions? I'm looking to place that on the consent agenda if possible for the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Pam.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this item, text amendment to the zoning ordinance relating to tobacco head and smoke shops, including e-cigs and vape shops. This was initially presented to the Committee of the Whole on June 15th. There was a concern expressed on the proposed amended definition that I provided for tobacco shops, alternative nicotine shops, and vapor shops. And those concerns had to do with what was meant by primarily engaged and the percentage that was being used. So I was directed to go back and reevaluate the definition. When I went back and looked at my notes, I realized that the 30% should have been changed to 80%. And therefore, once you put the 80% in there, the definition then, as it's written, makes complete sense. So the change for the zoning ordinance text amendments will be incorporating that 80% so that the rest of the definition now makes sense. There are no other changes. Also, too, this item was directed to be placed on for action, but because we have some changes to the tobacco municipal code provisions, I'm holding this back so that they can move forward together. So if council is satisfied with the change, then I would be seeking direction from the council to place this proposed zoning ordinance text amendment for action at the next meeting on July 20th.
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay?
Action item?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem and the members of the council, if it's okay, we'd like to move up CED 1 as well while we're just talking about the vape thing and bring that up. That's okay.
Pam, if you can go ahead.
Yes, sure. The next one has to do with the municipal code text amendments. Again, this was also presented at the June 15th Committee of the Whole meeting. The council had directed staff to define more specifically the parameters on how an exhaust system would be accomplishing the removal, and then to represent this to city council or to committee prior to final action. So I went back and I did additional research, and I found there are two options for defining these parameters. The first one could be a building code amendment, which would definitely take some additional time. Currently, the building code does not include vape as a defined hazardous substance. There are no provisions for smoke eaters, and when smoke is referenced in all the codes, it refers specifically to smoke that's caused by fire. So if we had to do an amendment, it would require some staff research, presentation to and discussion by the Committee of the Whole, with ultimate final action by the City Council. In addition, as I looked through the sections of the code with Keith Rooney, our building official, we would probably, this route would probably be more expensive for a potential business owner, because the system would be subject to outdoor discharge, exhaust location, and termination points. It would be equivalent to currently, for example, nail salons. Because of the chemicals that are used, they are defined and they are considered as hazardous, so they are required in all salons, in nail salons, to have direct venting systems over each station to help to prevent the fumes and things from traveling to the adjacent tenant spaces. And so, you know, that would be like a similar type of thing that we would have to put together for vape shops. And so again, that would be a more costly, more expensive route to go. The other option, as I did some more research, was that I found an actual air cleaner that has been specifically designed for vapor shops. And I actually talked to a dealer and a manufacturer. I included the specifications in your packet for review. Essentially, the system is a three-part system. It removes the vapor mist from the air. It also captures the liquid, because since vapor mist is liquid, it captures the liquid and it holds it so that it doesn't drip onto the floor. And then before the air is put back into the space, it goes through a charcoal filter. So it kind of covers, you know, three different things. I included what the manufacturer's cost is for a system like this. There's two kinds of styles. If they have a drop ceiling, there's one that fits into a drop ceiling. If they don't, then there's one that gets mounted to the ceiling. You know, the cost is what it is for the manufacturer, plus freight and delivery, plus there's an installation cost, either by an electrician or an HVAC person. In addition, this machine, the manufacturer had told me, also assists with the accumulation of the film that gets dispelled into the air by the glycerin product that's in the vapor mist. It will eliminate or help to eliminate some of that vapor or that glycerin look that gets on the windows and the glass counters. That's just kind of a side maintenance thing for shop owners, is what the system can do. Or if this isn't, you know, we're not saying they have to use this specific system. It's an option that's out there. We could consider an equivalent type system, you know, would do the similar type of things. But in either case, staff would recommend option 2, either the Smoke Master system referenced above or an equivalent system, as it's probably the more cost effective for shop owners. And if the council could provide some direction on which option they would prefer.
My option is neither. I've been pretty vocal against all the regulations and all the talk that we've had about this. You know, this has always been a for me. We've created a crisis out of nothing. So I'm fine with everything in this, except for section 13455, new subsection E. I simply have no idea why we would require any vape shop to go ahead and put in an exhaust system. I don't know why. Are we protecting the public? I don't know. I've been in all the vape shops. I've been into the businesses adjacent to the vape shops. Never once have I smelled anything. Yet, I can walk up and down State Street and go past the various places of business where the people go ahead and, as long as they're 15 feet from the front of the door, they can go ahead and smoke cigarettes, and we get that wonderful smell of stale cigarettes on the ground. But that's okay. That's okay. So we are regulating smell. I don't think we should be government should not be in the business of regulating smell. We're concerned about, I just heard that, well, we're concerned about, the film inside on a countertop or on a window. What difference does it make? If there's a film on a window or film on a counter, isn't that the business of the business owner? We should not be regulating film. So if I had to vote for any of this and make this a requirement, I would be voting no for this one thing. We have no business regulating smell. That's not what government's for. Government is not to regulate smell. That's my position. If it comes up, if everybody else wants to pass it in 2 weeks, fine. I'll be voting no.
Anyone else have any opinion on this?
I like the staff recommendation on it. I agree with the filtration system. I agree. I think it was well researched by Pam. It's not just like a vent system that would just take the vapor. And I think it's more than smell. I don't think it's a regulation of smell, but I won't go into that as in depth. It actually filters the liquid and the glycerin, so it's not just being vented out into the air, into who knows where. So it actually captures the glycerin and the chemicals that are in the vape. So I like that recommendation, and I'll be voting yes.
So I just asked that, based upon what I just heard, I said, when we go ahead and say Billy Bob's barbecue joint, when it comes to Lockport, and they're going to be go ahead and they're going to be making their brisket and their pork chops and their pork butt outside, and that smell's going to be going up in there, and there's going to be particulate matter, and we've had people come up here and they talk about particulate matter in the air. Are we going to regulate that too?
Well, in a way, we kind of regulate restaurants, because when they cook, they have to have a hooded system that does direct vent the heat and
But I can
whatever
still,
out.
but I can still smell it. I can smell the hamburgers, I can smell the pizza, I can smell the steaks.
I don't believe this discussion is about the smell. I think it's about what people perceive that smoke to, they don't want to inhale it. I think it's a.
Why are we regulating it? Why are we doing that? We don't have any business doing that.
I think it's more of a perception. I mean, look at the empirical evidence. I mean, if the shops that people vape in has a film in it, I mean, I think logically, empirically, what does this do when it's inhaled in your body? If it's leaving a film on the glass that it's smoked in, then it's leaving a film in your body when you inhale it. I mean, I don't see how that can be denied.
And then the people are going inside this building. They are whatever real or imagined health problems are being exposed to. That's their choice.
If they're going in there on their own.
They're all going in on their own. But what we are doing here is we are regulating passersby. We are regulating people looking in a window as they're passing by. Said, oh, there's something in there. I just think it's wrong.
To me, I think this is a good discussion, right? This is why we have the committee of the whole to talk about all this stuff and bring all that stuff up. Darren, to some of your points, ventilation outside is totally different. Every HVAC code, everything you could do outside has free ventilation. It's open air. It's different. That's why they try to stay 15 feet away from doors, right, for smoking and so forth. The hoods for restaurants, it isn't smell. It's grease. It's stuff that people are. We wouldn't have a barbecue place would be full of smoke. We wouldn't allow it. We'd have to have them have hoods. All it does is take out the smoke and the heat and the grease vapors. And it's just those things. I mean, I think this is prudent for, it's there, it's part of the business, it's part of the image, it's part of branding, it's part of all our, how we're moving forward and with the city and stuff like that. I don't think it's a huge burden on anybody. Anyway, I mean, restaurants used to have the smoke eaters back in the 70s and 80s, right, when they passed that, just so they can have people stepping in there. And it being a ventilation, just a direct exhaust outside, or a scrubber like this, doesn't matter to me. It's just something that's there to facilitate clearing up that space, because so we can have a shop Lockport friendly environment where people can go in and out. That's all it is to me. The people want to vape. I mean, you talk about regulating. We regulate if somebody's opening up an adult bookstore, if somebody's selling guns, ammo, and so forth, right? There's a lot of discussion to have about what we regulate and don't, but this is just something simple about that you physically walk in, that's the air you breathe. You can't choose or not choose to breathe that air inside or outside that area.
I'll grant you that if you grant me this, okay?
Oh.
I'll grant everybody else the last paragraph in here, number 4, I believe. For existing alternative nicotine shops and vapor shops established prior to the adoption of this ordinance, a smoke vapor mist exhaust system or similar system shall be installed no later than 1 year from the adoption. Take out number 4 of subsection A. I'll vote yes. Because now we're putting a burden on the people who are already here. We're asking them within 1 year to go ahead and take out number 4, and I'll vote yes.
So the next person that comes in, open up a vape shop
They
says...
have to have one.
But
They came in after the adoption of the ordinance.
sure, but that burden being saying you are hurting their business, they have to increase their prices
They knew
compared to...
that coming in.
I know,
Those
but
that currently exist did not have this burden.
sure, it's still a burden. The 1 year, if that's gonna be a little longer or any of that stuff, to me, it levels the playing field with everybody. I don't have a...
I'm just curious about the system. Is it an instant on system? Because, I mean, then who's policing if somebody decides to turn it on or off?
Well, and that's a good question, because I talked to Keith about it, and we've had issues with some of the nail salons that are required to put these systems in. And right now, they are on a switch on-off. They have to control them. And we have had a couple nail salons in the community in which Keith did have to go in there, and because he was receiving complaints specifically by these shops from the adjacent tenants, and Keith did have to go in there and tell them, if you don't start turning this thing on and doing what you're supposed to do, which is required by code, then we're going to make you hook it into a light switch so that every time you turn your lights on, the system turns on, if you can't remember to turn it on your own. So, yes, could it potentially be a policing issue? Certainly, and we currently deal with that now with nail salons.
My opinion is pretty much along the lines of what Alderman Capadona and Alderman Petracco said. I tried to do research on this. I'm not an expert in science or vaping or anything, right? And there's definitely different sides of whether vaping is a positive or a negative, and that's fine, right? But we're not trying to legislate whether people vape, whether they don't vape. My thought, and kind of similar to what Jim was saying, was, is this like an undue burden to a place, or is this more of like a reasonable request? I was kind of trying to figure out, and when I looked, I felt like $2,000 was kind of, it's an expense that they may not have thought of, but I think it's a reasonable request to be within the city of Lockport. This is not a perfect comparison, but I actually asked, I know a guy who did a build out on a grocery store, and he told me that the required ventilation hood for a sushi counter is a multiple of that $2,000, right? So again, they knew it getting into it, but it's much more, that they did was much more expensive than the $2,000. Regardless of which side of the fence you are on vaping or smell, this is a nicotine product. It does leave some sort of a film behind that, is not pleasurable, right? And to some people may not be pleasurable. Darren, you mentioned the smoking within 15 feet of a door being kind of an issue. I agree, right? But there's not a perfect solution to everything, but I do think that this is
It also happens to be
pretty
state law.
reasonable.
It also happens to be state law. We are creating a law.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, the other thing that's interesting is the whole, as I'm sure everybody doing their research knows, the whole vaping has big hurdles in front of them right now, right, with the new FDA rules. Since we started this right about that same time, you know, they, frankly, on the producer side, and I know you mentioned that some of the shops here locally will do mixes and give out free samples. As far as I can tell, under the new FDA ordinances, they're going to become a producer. And so I think that's probably going to stop, or there's going to be some workaround, but it's going to cost millions of dollars for this kind of stuff to continue. And that's not, you know, our local shop isn't going to have to pay $1 million, but there's a lot more coming this way. I came from healthcare, and it got to the point where it's hundreds of millions to get things, you know, through the FDA. So to the local shop, $2,000, I'm sure they don't appreciate it, but kind of for the greater good, I feel like this is a reasonable way to go. You know, Darren, to your point on section E.4, that's an interesting point that I honestly didn't really think about. I still think if they're going to be an ongoing business here, which, again, giving them a year is going to be well after, I think they only have 90 days to figure out what they're going to do with all these FDA requirements. They're either going to be a going concern in this community or not for years to come. They're going to have to figure all the FDA stuff and all of their stuff out before they would have to go buy this, right? And so maybe there becomes an inflection point where, I don't know what happens in the vaping industry, but the business owners will have to make that decision. When they do, you know, then they can take that $2,000 expense for the local guys and figure out if it's worth it for them or not. And you know, we'll see. I don't pretend to know everything about the vaping industry, but I feel like it kind of stinks, but it's reasonable, and you know, I generally support staff's recommendation here.
Anyone else?
The last one.
The only thing I could offer to gain any other consensus was you could extend the time to comply for the grandfather to ones before. Is it 18 months? Is it $600 every 6 months going to help them comply instead of 12 months? I mean,
And really, I think just briefly, we could certainly work with the businesses that are already here, and if they need to have extended time, that's not an issue. We're not trying to force someone out of the business. It's just trying to help the public as well as,
No, this had nothing to do with public. This is
Well,
not,
if
it
it-
has nothing to do with the public. This has been my objection to the entire discussion for the past 7 months. It all started when we had somebody in this room say, I walked into the place, there was a big cloud of vapor, and there was a fruity smell. And from that moment on, it came, we threw out all science, we threw all reason, and we focused on smell. So, if we can go ahead and have the subsection E, number 4, have that eliminated, everybody's happy.
I don't know that that's the consensus of everyone here, though,
Yeah,
correct?
I support staff's recommendation as written.
I agree.
It seems like there's a clear majority with staff recommendation. Perhaps everyone on the council could consider what Ben just brought up, increasing it to perhaps 18 months. So something to mull over for the next couple weeks.
you want to roll it over to an action item for July 20th with an 18-month
Is that okay with
window
everyone?
instead of 12 months? I mean,
I think that'd probably be a good idea.
18 months? Okay,
Okay,
appreciate the feedback.
okay. Staff report, Ben?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. The next item is in regards to what we have been calling the Genovic lot. It's the vacant lot at 929 South State Street. This was purchased by the city of Lockport back in late 2013. I think one of the reasons when we brought it to the council at the time was to hopefully administer some control of the redevelopment of that property, that we wanted to make sure that certain types of businesses may or may not be able to acquire the property. We've had it listed internally in regards to being on our website. We have not had a formal relationship with a developer, broker, and/or real estate agent to get it into the MLS listings. We have had some discussions with Caton Commercial. They're a well-known broker, developer in the region in Will County and have many properties in the area. We were trying to discuss a contract with them. I want to thank Alderwoman Bartleson as a realtor. She's actually helped staff a little bit in regards to the contract. Tom had spent some time looking at it as well. I wanted to point out a few things in the contract. In your packet, you'll see a picture, a flyer that Pam had made in regards to the vacant property, and then the draft that we had at the time when we put the council together. We're going to revise this draft a little bit, make a couple of text amendments. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention was that we were changing, let me get the section for you here. It's actually section 20 under the title, that we will not be responsible for a boundary survey, that we'll be responsible for a regular survey, which we already have. They've also agreed to split any earnest money 50-50 that originally was going to go towards their fee regardless, and we've negotiated with them that if someone puts an earnest money down on a project and if they pull out, that we would get those funds 50-50. And so my recommendation will hopefully be that if we do get earnest money on a development, that we get at least $30,000 down so that we can cover their fee and recoup some costs if we need to. I think I've had a few emails and phone calls in regards to the fee itself. It's recommended at $15,000. You know, the property was acquired for about $80,000. And I think the big question is, if you're all in on this property, the total cost of acquisition with the purchase of the property and this fee would be about $95,000. So the city has invested $100,000 to hopefully find a partner in the community that is willing to invest $500, $600, $700, $1 million in regards to putting a new building that is going to pass H&A and city standards. We've had only one petitioner in the past 3 years look at it seriously. They had a wonderful design and building. We would look to try to find a partner that would have something like that, where you have a retail or restaurant component on the first floor, apartments or offices on the second floor. But that is literally a very expensive proposition, and this current petitioner was undercapitalized and it never came to fruition. So again, we are trying to hold the control in regards to its redevelopment. The truth of the matter will be that getting someone to partner with us to redevelop that vacant lot is going to require incentives. Those incentives may be utilizing the TIF. Those incentives may be negotiating the price of the property down to something very minimal. You know, anything is, again, negotiable with a developer, and that's why we felt if the fee was commission-based, typical commercial commissions run about 10%. Just to give you an example, the CED building next door, I had appraised because it's going to be coming available on the market someday as well. I believe it came back at about $550,000. So if we had a structure there that we were selling, you know, the commission would be $50,000. So we felt that 15 wasn't necessarily an unreasonable ask. I know when that number jumps out at you as to find a home in regards to getting development in the downtown, it's a very important piece. It's in the middle of our historic downtown. It is going to take a relationship that we hope this developer has, and we feel like we can give them a year and an opportunity to try to broker this deal. They have some interested parties that they're talking to that they want to have meetings with in regards to the property before they list it on the MLS. And so we didn't feel like if we tried to put a commissionable amount, they would just be negotiating against themselves, that if they were trying to lower the price to get a redevelopment deal, that they're just lowering their commission. So the flat fee was the way to go.
Ben, I just wanted to, also, it came to mind just now as you were talking about the earnest money. If they said it up front in the remarks that so much earnest money is required, they can put that on there so that the potential buyer will know that there's a commitment on their behalf that they have to put in a decent, you know, amount of earnest money to hold that,
Sure.
you know, for the mutual benefit. And also, if you could just make sure that the broker also stresses the benefits that, you know, of the TIF that we could offer them all the benefits that we can offer them, they need to advertise it as such, because that will attract, you know.
Yeah, I think it's
businesses.
going to take a combination of incentives to get that kind of investment in the downtown.
But if they put it up front, you know, that's a good advertisement of the property.
What is the sale price that we're looking at?
Well, right now it would be listed at $80,000, but again, it's going to be all negotiable. It could be, we would bring any offer back to this council to accept in a redevelopment agreement anyway, probably with potential clawbacks where they don't get the title until they perform a building to a certain standard, or there'll be many things that I'm sure Tom and I can try to negotiate, and we would bring back to council for any approval before then. So I think the listing price would be $80,000, that's what we paid. In truth, we could sell it for $10. If someone is going to invest $1 million, I would be the first one to sit here in front of you and say, we need to give this property away for $10 because they are going to invest $1 million in our downtown. I think you see something similar to that in the Embers project, where we paid several $100,000 for a piece of property and sold it for $10, but that owner has invested 1.6, 1.8 at this point and has provided an anchor in our downtown. And we are hopeful to find someone that wants to invest like that. I'm hoping we can come back with something. Certainly if somebody wants to come in and they want to take advantage of TIF incentives, then maybe they do need to pay $80,000 for the lot. So again, anything is negotiable, but the standard price would be what we paid for.
That's where, you know, Embers was different. You had an agreement with them you had the developer, you had all the things, the statements, where they were, what the building was gonna look like, all that stuff was in. Here you're just selling a piece of property. Somebody can buy it and sit on it for 20 years.
That's what we're trying to avoid, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's,
Yeah.
having ownership, we have that control. And it would be my contention that if we brought a package to you like that, that we would have the same clawbacks. We would have the same kind of standards, that they would have to be building something that we're all willing to have. I don't think we're interested in selling it for $100,000 and making $20,000 so that someone could sit on it and speculate for the next decade that there's a vacant property there and that we all invest in the downtown and bring the values up and then they want to sell it. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a partner in the community to invest in the downtown, and that's going to require a redevelopment agreement that would have those standards.
And I think that's something that also needs to be brought up front, that we don't want them to just buy it as an investment and sit on it. It's actually, we want them to build on it
That's
within a certain period of time.
That's my fear, though. So a standard residential or commercial agreement here for sale, or what you want to call it, broker agreement, somebody buys it, they can do that in a normal process. They can do whatever they want. Somebody bought my house and they want to tear it down tomorrow, they can't, even though I thought of sentimental value.
Right.
So how do we ensure all that and bring that package? Because now we're just putting it out there on the MLS.
Yeah, I think what we would do is we would build a reverter into the deed that would require the purchaser to meet certain benchmarks, submit building plans by a certain date, have financing in place by a certain date, start construction, and have completion by a certain date. If not, then there's a reverter that would allow the city to exercise its right to reclaim title to the property. If nothing's been built on it, nothing's been done, it's very easy. If it's been built upon, then there are some financial considerations that we have to work on, and the contract would address that. But there are protections that we can build into a contract. So as Ben said, and as Mayor Pro Tem Bartleson said, you don't have a speculator coming in, buying and holding for 5 years or 10 years, waiting to see what happens.
And this is something that Mayor Pro Tem would probably knows. If we sit there and list this for $10 or say 80, we bought it for 80, and that hurts the sale value of all the other buildings that are downtown, because now you have an MLS listing that is at X. I'd rather have true appraisal at a price. We can negotiate down, incentive down, but
I would not encourage, you know, stating that,
Listing it,
we-
no,
you know,
we
listing it at $10 or whatever, best offer. That's not the point. I think we need to place an actual value on that property, and then the broker will work to either get that price or, you know, or whatever deal that, you know, comes before us, you know.
Our plan was never to list it, you know, for a minor value. I think my intention was to list it for what we paid for it, but I think you bring up a good point. We should maybe have an appraisal done and list it for the appraised price and say incentives available.
Well, they should be able to do that for
Yeah,
you.
I was just trying to be upfront with you that I think a package coming to you at some point in the future may entail that you may.
that is
Give it
fine. I
as an
just don't want to
incentive.
hurt other businesses, other
Yeah.
buildings around there saying,
Good point.
lot next door just sold for $50,000.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
listed for 80. That hurts everybody downtown, right?
Well, we had it appraised when we bought it, right?
I can check the files for that. I'm guessing it's in there, but we should have it updated. I mean, it's 3 years ago. I don't know.
And, I mean, I understand your point, but I don't think
It may not
sale
change
on
much.
an
Yeah.
unimproved property hurts the sale price. or
Not the listing,
market
right?
value
Yeah.
of building.
Then have the broker do their
Analysis,
job and,
sure.
yeah, analysis on that. Because if we can save some money on not paying an appraiser, you know, that's
Good
their
point.
job too, is to give
The
a
broker
value
may
on
have
that
a
land.
suggested sale price, yeah.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
could just do it, look at the old appraisal, do something, just so it doesn't hurt anybody else, because there are other empty properties in downtown that may get hurt because of
Right.
this.
Oh,
Should be able
absolutely.
to at least provide the old one in the next packet on July 20th. and-
Something, if you can do
Some
that, and the
answers.
background on all the
Yeah,
information.
and you could let
on-
them know, this was the value back whenever that appraisal was done, and then that broker can actually work from off of that and based on what the market has been doing.
Full-blown appraisal on that
Okay,
would be a lot cheaper.
yeah. Happy to do that.
Should we just wait on this to get more information on the reverter and all that before we?
Well, sorry.
My recommendation would be to move forward with it this evening, have it placed on the city council agenda, and we would work with the broker to make sure when it is advertised in the MLS, it's advertised at a certain price that's appropriate, and with conditions, and the conditions, we could start stating those from now, that construction would be expected within a year or 2 years, whatever time period is reasonable, and certain other investment thresholds that would have to be met.
You can have all that for the city council?
Yeah, we could put a list together for the next meeting and have that on the agenda.
You know, the less time that you give a buyer, the better it is. If they ask for an extension, that they need more time, let them ask for it, but I would say give them a time frame. That way, you know, you get a better commitment from them. That's just my thought.
And again, this is the expectations with the broker and their conversations, but an actual deal, redevelopment deal would be negotiated, with you, just like we did with the other one.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to solve all those questions, I guess, in
Yeah.
advance is what
Are
I'm
we
saying.
gonna put some parameters in in the broker agreement with regard to sale price? I know and I understand why that's left blank right now, but,
Mhm.
because you wanna make sure that it's negotiable, but what I wanna avoid is, say we list it for 80, they bring in somebody for 50 and say, well, we produce somebody who's ready, willing, and able to buy, there's no sort of,
It's like a
redevelopment
20%
agreement.
fee, or what's a regular commercial
Right.
fee?
Well, that's where the next level of expectations and, going through their background and application, that before we would agree to sell and lose control, that they would have an expectation of performance to build a building at a certain time in a certain way.
Okay, and I just don't, I just wanna make sure that there's no confusion, that there's no argument that they can make that they earned a fee by producing somebody who's willing to purchase for 50 or 60 or even 70, or with no sort of, redevelopment agreement, or redevelopment.
I've had those conversations with them, but the document's currently silent in that, and maybe we can work with Tom to put something in.
All right, thanks.
I'm sorry, Chris, are you talking about commission paid to the broker? If they have not produced
Yeah, I'm
a,
talking about strictly the brokers.
sure, oh, okay. Well, yeah, they don't really get paid until closing anyhow, so they have to
But
produce that willing and
They
able.
would get the 15,000 whether we sell it for 80 or for 25 or 5. I mean,
Or
that's-
$10.
Or $10.
Right.
But again, if they're
That's-
bringing you a
I
buyer.
would not recommend
that's
$10,
investing-
if possible.
Right, and I have no issue with that, but I just wanna make sure that there's no argument that they could make, that if they bring
Sure.
somebody who we reject and say, you know what, that's not a good fit for us, that they say, well, we did our job, we produced.
I
No,
gotcha.
You know what, I don't believe that's what do have a copy of the contract, but all standard contracts, and even this is a commercial contract, it does not say that they've earned a commission until they've actually closed. At least this is how I understand this to read, is that correct?
I think Alderman Capadona's concern is if the broker brings in an asking price offer, let's say the asking price is $100,000, somebody says, I'm offering you $100,000, but no conditions, then at that point, could the broker come back and say, we met the asking price, now we're entitled to the commission, even though the city turned the offer down? And that's why I think what we want to do is clarify with the broker that this is not just a simple asking price listing, it's an asking price plus meeting certain
The
conditions.
conditions, correct,
Right.
yeah.
But
And
a
that's how I
redevelopment
understood
agreement
it.
is required for sale.
Right.
Redevelopment agreement is.
Truthfully, that's how I understood it, so that's a good point, because I understood it as though, unless all conditions were met with that contract seller and buyer, they don't earn a commission at that point until everything is met.
Along those same lines, earnest money, you split it, somebody walks away, right, the deal falls through, you keep that earnest money, you split it between there, you get a second person, earnest money, split it, they walk away, just, everyone starts just making more money, the broker just keeps making more money, how does?
Well, it depends on how the contract is written as far as the earnest money. Usually, the earnest money is put up at the time of the signing, and if there are contingencies such as environmental or financing, a lot of times the contract is written where the earnest money is refundable if the contingencies aren't satisfied. We can ask for what's commonly called as hard money. In other words, where you're posting the money and it's non-refundable, it really depends upon the nature of the deal. And in our case, we are going to have to get creative with this, like we did with the Embers project, where you had a sale at $10, but there were no TIF benefits that the council decided, and making sure that all of the investment came from the private developer. So this is going to be a very fluid negotiation that you will have final decision-making authority on. I think the issues we're talking about tonight is making sure the city doesn't get locked into paying a commission and not having a sale. That's the issue Alderman Capadona raised. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. And then as far as the asking price, we'll have a recommendation for you at the next meeting, and I think it'll allow us to move forward and have an understanding with the broker what our expectations are and what the contract requires.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, let's move. Let's go ahead and move
Leave it on
forward
as an
then.
action item, we'll bring
Yeah,
back some
action
more.
item for July 20th.
Real quick question, we were gonna put parking blocks there, right, and grade it?
Temporarily, yeah, because Commerce Street is being reconstructed later this fall, and we will take the grindings from Commerce to level out the pad and put some parking bumpers in there, so easily mitigated and removed if we were lucky enough to find somebody that wants to do something soon.
Okay. Okay, next, Lisa?
Tom, did you want to take that?
I'm sorry. Mayor, I knew I'd make the mistake once. Madam Mayor and members of the council, the state of Illinois has contacted the city, asking the city to pass a prevailing wage ordinance. There's a state statute that's been in existence for many decades that requires all public works projects that the city lets a contract to a private contractor to pay minimum wage. And actually, it's prevailing wage. The prevailing wage is set by the State Department of Labor, I believe it is, and that's based on an assessment that the state does on an annual basis. Most municipalities adopt the ordinance and adopt the prevailing wages as established by the Department of Labor. The statute does give each municipality the opportunity to ascertain our own prevailing wages if we think they should be higher or lower. I don't believe there are many communities that do that because it's an expensive process. So most municipalities do one of two things. Either they pass the ordinance that's being requested by the state, or they do nothing, and in that case, the statute provides that the state-determined rates prevail anyway. I know that the question has been asked, do we really have a choice in this? And the answer is no. The statute clearly establishes that we must require contractors who the city hires to do public works projects to pay the prevailing wage to their employees. That's something that if you don't do that, then it is sanctionable by the state. This is the process for the local community to buy into that process. You do have the choice. If you choose to do nothing and not pass it, the prevailing wages as ascertained by the state apply. If you do pass this, then we do send it to the state, and the state knows that we've passed this, and we're not objecting to the rates that they determined.
I have a question. When I first read this, I was pretty sure our municipal code addressed prevailing wage. And sure enough, chapter 35, section 35.02 we have a prevailing wage act. I can't read it because my Apple product doesn't allow me to read it, but my non-Apple product allows me to read it. And it seems to me is that we already have something within our municipal code, and so now we're asking to pass another ordinance to put in our municipal code. So are we really only just putting in the municipal code this year's wages, or what's the difference between what we currently have and what you're asking us?
If we did nothing, if we didn't have the ordinance that you found in our municipal code, the city would still be obligated to require its contractors to pay a prevailing wage on all public works projects. So the ordinance that was passed, and I don't know when it was passed, but it was probably an enabling ordinance basically saying we agree and we will adopt the prevailing wage ordinance in the future as necessary. The state is now following up on asking the city to pass an annual ordinance and then file it with the state. As I mentioned, some communities do that, others don't. I'm unaware of any communities that have been sanctioned for not doing it. I know there are some communities in DuPage County and McHenry County who have objected, and they're basically being told then you have to go through a process of ascertaining what you think the prevailing wage rates should be for these various positions. And when you think about the various positions, it's laborer, it's someone driving a roller, it's somebody working a lute. Those are the type of things that...
It's hundreds.
It's hundreds, right. And landscapers for certain landscaping positions. So you really do go through a very labor-intensive process, which I'm sure would be expensive. When in researching this with the city clerk, we found the last time we passed this ordinance was in 2005. So nothing has happened in the interim. We've accepted the prevailing wages as determined by the state on an annual basis. Our contracts that we let to the various private contractors always has a provision that requires them to pay the prevailing wage. So this is, and I think Alderman Vandermeer asked this question a few months ago on another matter being mandated by the state. Do we have a choice? The reality is you don't have a choice about requiring the payment of prevailing wage. You do have a choice as to whether this ordinance gets passed or not. If you don't pass it, it really doesn't change the playing field at all. Prevailing wage still must be paid by our contractors.
Well, that really didn't answer my question.
All right, let me try to answer it then.
My question was, since we already have here's what I'm asking in the next 2 weeks. I would like to have our city attorney go ahead and review our Chapter 35.02 prevailing wage, and to see if our municipal code reflects what you just told us. And if it doesn't, then I would like to have a recommendation so we can go ahead and make Chapter 35.02 Prevailing Wage Act compliant with what you just told us.
And I will look at it. My guess is, though, that the ordinance is a general statement that the city shall require the payment of prevailing wages on public works projects. What this ordinance before you does, though, it adopts specific hourly wage rates for hundreds of positions that could be found on any one of our jobs. So that's what you're adopting. And again, one example is Boilermaker. If we have a contract that requires a Boilermaker to be employed, that Boilermaker will make $47.07 per hour as the base, and then it goes through and addresses other payments that need to be made. And it goes through, cement mason, carpenter, electrician, and that's what this particular ordinance in front of you is doing. It's adopting the actual hourly wage rates that would not have been available at the time we did the original ordinance.
So I guess what I'm really asking here is from now on, Chapter 35.02, we should see amended on whatever date for whatever year from this day forward.
We don't necessarily need a code amendment where we're changing the city code. The only thing we're doing here is just passing a supplemental ordinance that adopts the specific wage rates for all of those positions that are listed in the attachment.
I think to be clear, the prevailing wage is common through all public projects, right? Schools,
Right.
municipalities, all that stuff. We're passing that, those change all the time. As an architect, we print out the latest one from Will County, Cook County, whatever it is, and we put it in the specifications, and the contractors all know it, the engineers all know it. That's a no-brainer. I think passing this tonight is just formality. The question of it being in the code, I think we just got to double-check that we haven't listed any hourly rates or anything there, and just saying, listen, let's clean up the code so it says that we're
Our
following the most available prevailing wage.
Language within the municipal code
Yeah,
could just simply say whatever the current year that Will County sets.
Right, I don't know what it says now, I don't know what it could say, so just, yeah, still double check it.
I just don't want to have a redundancy. You know,
Sure.
now we have an ordinance that basically says exactly what the code says.
I have not read that section, but if it has all the hourly rates from before, I
It doesn't have
would
any
say,
hourly
okay, we'd have to erase it, but, yeah, let's just make it clear.
I will look into it, we'll report back, we'll put it on the next agenda as an action
Yeah,
item,
move
so
tonight.
you can decide whether to pass it or not then.
Okay. Lisa?
So currently, the city operates a commuter lot. The cost is $1 a day to park. When parkers are there now, they need cash. They have to put cash onto a card, load the cash onto the card, and then they could use that to pay to park every single day. They don't have a credit card option. So the company that takes care of our machines out there are offering us a solution to help our residents become more convenient. They can download an app onto their smartphone and pay through that app. There is a convenience fee associated with that for the parker every time they use it or every time they load money onto that wallet. But it's convenience, it's optional. We're still gonna have our cash option that we have now. This is just giving them an alternative. There are about 40 other municipalities in this Chicagoland area that have already adopted this as an option, including Lamont, New Lenox, Orland Park. So it is something that's growing. Certainly we're not twisting anybody's arm to use it. There is fees associated with it, so they can choose to do that, but they aren't required. They can still use the same process we have now. In talking to the police department, I asked them, are they getting complaints? Are there people who are saying, I want an option, I don't want to always have to come with cash here? And the problem that I heard from the PD is that people will call and say, please don't give me a ticket, I couldn't make it to the machine in time, the train was here, what can I do? And they would be able to say to them, here's an option, pay by phone, now you could take care of it. So it's just giving people an option. We could create a little bit more revenue from that. There are some fees, but again, those fees don't come to us. Those fees go to the company that's offering this convenience. So I put a contract in front of you guys to consider.
I like the option. I used to take the train downtown, and I always knew I had to have $1 on me to park. This is not at the Lockport lot, but a neighboring lot. And so, I would, and it's not the end of the world, but I've been there where I was about to miss my train, and it's a sudden, decision of, do I jump on this train and risk the ticket or not? And any way we can give options that, there is an extra fee, but it's a choice. They don't have to do that, right? We're not imposing any mandatory fees. I think we did this that was kind of the same situation with, was it the water billing? Online billing, right? I don't see why we wouldn't do this, right? So I'm definitely in favor of it.
Yeah, I agree. I've been there with the train too. It's a no-brainer.
My question is just contract-wise, make sure we button this up. Tom, please, there's stuff in there that are all, right, as I told Ben today, we're not the city of Chicago, right, the 70-year parking program stuff that we're doing here, that there's liabilities, there's things that they're asking of the city, there's saying that we have to promote stuff, we have to do promotional, there's a whole page of how the city has to promote it, so I want to make sure we're all on board with doing all that information, sending it out, putting it on our website. And there's even a penalty against us if we don't do something in 90 days from their start date. So just want to make sure all that stuff is looked at and it's not just passed up and we miss it.
Okay, very good. So should we refer that then to July 20th?
You guys reviewed the contract already? There was, the term of the contract is basically a year to year. you have to give 60 days to get out. There's some terms in there that you have to be up and running by a certain date, and you can get out sooner if you want, within the first, probationary period. I don't think any of those things that were in there were issues or,
Okay.
huge expense. We have to be able to hang signs for them. We'd want to promote it on our website for our residents anyway. So, I didn't find anything in that contract that
Okay.
I thought was going to be a burden for the city.
Should we take a vote then tonight?
No.
No?
we can't
Committee of the
vote.
whole.
We
Committee of the
can put
whole,
it
so-
on for either consent or action.
Okay, so,
Would you prefer action, just so we can go through that contract one more time?
If you can, like the one that
Okay,
really
then-
sticks to me is that it's just a renewing contract automatically. So
60
we
days
don't,
out, right?
we can always get out with 60 days, but it's just we don't, it doesn't, will never come back to council. We'll just keep it
Okay.
renewing. So, good, bad, or indifferent, that's for us to decide. I mean, maybe it's just automatic and it just happens but just want to make sure we're just looking at that.
refer it then to the July 20th as an action? Okay? All righty. Let's see. We took care of Pam. Amy, it's your turn.
That's me. Okay, my first item on the agenda is the 7th and Washington Street East Reconstruction Project and recommendation for selection of consultant. Over the last few years, the goal in the engineering department is to make sure that we have projects designed and ready to go. We've spent several years in the past passing a budget and then trying to get engineering done real quick and waiting until the end of the summer to put a project out for bid. And then the construction lasts, into the winter, and then sometimes we have winter shutdown, and then it extends into the following construction season. So we want to try to avoid that if at all possible. The 7th and Washington Street East Reconstruction Project is not planned until 2018. However, this project has a few issues that go along with it, including the Millen Creek that borders the north side of 7th Street and the west side of Washington Street along the majority of this project. There's also the possibility that we will need to acquire a corner clip of property of right-of-way to be able to construct the roadway to the city standard width, similar to the other 7th and Washington project that we just finished last year at the top of the hill. H.R. Green was the consultant that did the previous 7th and Washington project, which included the corner clip of right-of-way that we had to acquire. They did the right-of-way documents for that and the design. So we requested a proposal from H.R. Green to take on this project. They provided a proposal for this, for the engineering for this project in the amount of $64,734. The construction estimate for this project is about $850,000. So that is about 7.6% of the construction cost, which is really reasonable. So we recommend that the City Council award the construction contract or the engineering contract to H.R. Green in the amount of $64,734 for the 7th and Washington East reconstruction project.
Yeah, I have a question. Amy, does it include the clip, the design services includes the clip and figuring that whole thing out, acquiring the other property?
Yes, I believe so.
And then I know we take the small pills at each time, or we've got the design portion, the construction observation portion. When we do these, can we have those together? I mean,
Well, chances are this is going to, we are doing this with MFT money, but chances are we're going to be doing the construction observation of this one in-house because it's not a federal aid project.
perfect. Hey, yeah,
And
that's good
generally-
information to throw in there.
And generally, when we do split them up like that, it's because we can't pass a resolution to award a construction project until the project is awarded, or we can't, there's, especially on the federal aid projects, we have to do everything in a certain order. We can't award the Phase 3 construction before
Sure.
Phase 2 is done or Phase 1 is done, so.
Even if it's an estimate of, here's what it would be, right, when it comes down the road, it gives us an idea as we're planning this thing all out, like, should expect $50,000 in construction observation fees, at least gets it in there, and if 2 years down the road, it turns into 100, we have a discussion that we have to talk about. Okay?
So this,
I'm
can
fine with it.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so we refer that to, as a consent
No.
agenda?
It's fine with me.
Alice, do you want to-
Making consent for dollars, voting on dollars?
Okay, my second item on the bid, on the
Real quick,
agenda.
Amy, hold on one second. Tom, can that be consent agenda since it's a contract with dollars?
Yes. It can, as long as you take a roll call vote on the item on the consent agenda.
Okay, so should, okay.
That's
we'll
fine.
We
do
usually
a-
do anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
My second item on the agenda is the well 14 redrilling and iron filtration amendment to task orders 1303 and 1506. The city, as you all know, we have had the redrilling contract under construction for a while now. This project started in February and was really supposed to be completed by April. However, we ran into the issue with the low production. Well, there was an issue with the drilling, which caused a little bit of a delay, and then we had the issue with the low production of the well, which we passed the change order recently for the air burst process and the chemical treatment of the well to help increase the well production. So this project went from a 2-month project to a 5-month project. The contract that we awarded to Strand Associates for the construction inspection originally was for $38,000. And this was really for like 2 months of work, which, like I said, has stretched into almost 5 months now. So Strand has requested an increase, an amendment to the contract in the amount of $10,000 to cover some of the additional time that they've spent on the site and holding meetings with staff about the progress of the construction. Also, as this project comes to a close, we have to start thinking about our iron filtration project and moving forward with that. Now, in 2015, we awarded our, was it 2014? We put the project for the iron filtration project out to bid, and as we were getting ready to award the contract, the well collapsed, and so we did not award the contract and threw out all the bids and decided to re-drill the well at that point. Now, with the wellhead in a different location and the contract needing to be rebid, we have additional work that we have to contract out to Strand for redesigning the contract documents, re-putting them out to bid, re-permitting with IEPA, coordinating with Will County, and then we also have construction inspection to think about at this point. So Strand also provided a task order for this project, or an amendment, a task order amendment for this project in the amount of $24,750 for additional design-related services and additional permitting-related services. They also requested an amendment for additional bidding-related services in the amount of $18,000, and then an additional amendment to the task order for the construction inspection and management in the amount of $162,250. And the total cost for this is $205,000. The construction estimate for this project is $1.75 million. Generally, the construction inspection is anywhere from 8 to 12%. With a federal aid or a project that uses the state revolving funds, it's typically on the higher end of that. And this $162,250 would be about 9%, a little over 9% of the construction cost, which is very reasonable. And even if you added in the additional $24,000 and $18,000 for the design and the rebidding, it's still 11.5% of the construction cost. So our recommendation is going to be that the City Council approve the contract amendment to contract 1506 in the amount of $10,000 for the additional construction management and inspection for the well 14 redrilling contract, and also that the City Council approve the contract amendment for well 14 iron filtration facility in the amount of $205,000 for redesign, permitting, rebidding, and construction-related services.
I have a question. Amy, you could answer it, or maybe Chris can answer. We need to approve this, which then leads to the next and most obvious question. It gets approved in 2 weeks. When's that well go online?
The well reconstruction was designed such that it can go online without the iron removal facility. The well, they're currently targeting July 20th, actually, at their next meeting, as being the time where the testing and the pumping actually takes place. So then we'll have to wait for some test results to come back to make sure that everything is disinfected properly and it's ready to go. But, you know, we're hoping the end of this month, it should be pumping water into the system. And then we would follow up with the iron removal facility as part of the other amendment.
Thank you.
I think some of the good news too that, you know, this, Chris is there, I mean, the majority of that $10,000 for that additional 40 hours was spent on kind of trying to get more out of that well. And I think the good news is I think it's producing about 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, it produced nearly well, it would safely produce 1,000 gallons per minute for the 24-hour period. We don't want to run it full throttle like that, so we're ramping it back to 800 to 850 gallons per minute with the permanent well pump and the iron removal facility. So it worked. The money was well spent and more than doubled the production of the well.
This is becoming the money well. All right, so my questions, and it's more of a clarification, right? So those are the issues I had with just verbiage. $162,250 is not in addition to any contract you had for construction observation already.
Correct. We were never under contract for the construction observation services. That was taken one step at a time. We were under contract for the design services and for bidding services, but we didn't go under contract for any more than that for fear that it might not, that some,
so
we
in
didn't know
order,
the well was going to collapse. But
so in order, just to clarify, design was first. We hit the hiccup, right? The well. $10,000 is for figuring out the well, getting that all up and running back again. Yeah. The $10,000 amount, right?
The $10,000 is on the well reconstruction contract.
Gotcha.
A separate.
Right. So now that the well's in a different spot, you have to redesign the drawings, go to the IAPA.
Go back to the IAPA, go back to the county.
That's the $24,750 number. So that's the work for that. And then you have to rebid this again with the new well position.
The rebidding number is, if you just look at it as rebidding, it seems high, but it's also going through all the loan paperwork to reinstate the loan, to go through the application, to prepare ordinances and pass that stuff is in that rebidding number. And then the 162 is construction observation services, and it has the construction progress loan paperwork associated with that too, with progress payments and getting those to the state for reimbursement.
You submitted our breakdowns, right, to Amy, like your tests, all
Yes.
that stuff?
Yes.
Amy, if you can forward that to us. Okay.
Okay. Put this on consent agenda for July 20th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you're up.
Thank you. In your packet, there's a memo from the fleet maintenance manager
recommending truck number 105 from the street department fleet be declared salvage and disposed of at auction. We've spent over $15,000 in repairs since November of 2008, and the truck has over 117,500 miles on it. Therefore, we'd look for approval to authorize staff to declare truck 105 surplus and be disposed of at auction to the highest bidder.
Forgot to mention that it's rusted through.
Pardon?
Rusted
They are
floorboards.
not, I'm never, even if it's in the memo, I'm not saying it again.
You need to start giving us pictures. Have we
I
ever
can
gotten
do
our?
that.
are
I
we-
did go take pictures, I never sent them to you, I gave them to the administrator.
They don't need them,
My
we
fault.
need them.
All right.
Was there any report ever back from the auctions? Like, we get money
Yeah,
back?
Rusty, our fleet maintenance manager, he generates a report on that, and we communicate that also with finance. And we have talked going forward.
Big money maker?
The new truck this year that we're getting in, that was approved this fiscal year, which we'll be getting in the next 3 weeks, will replace this truck. And we have talked going forward, budget-wise, there is a prioritized list of what will go through vehicle-wise, of what to get rid of, and how much will be allotted every year in the budget, so.
Did you say the fleet manager's name was Rusty?
Yes, it's Rusty.
It is.
His name is Rusty.
These, like the cartoon cars. right?
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we'll put this on the consent agenda for July 20th?
Okay, the next item under Public Works too, staff had communicated with the city administrator about taking over the annual landscape maintenance contract for Lincoln Landing. I know there was talk with Steve Cardamone and the mayor regarding the subject, and at some point, we knew the city was gonna have to take over the landscaping at Lincoln Landing. Attached in your packet are quotes from Landworks, which is currently doing the site on a week-to-week basis, and also quotes from Berry Landscaping, and we also approached RJ's, who did not return the call to bid on the project. Landworks is currently charging $2,102 per month, and we got a quote from Berry to do the same work at $595 per month. So we recommend that council authorize the approval to enter into an annual landscape maintenance for the Lincoln Landing with Berry Landscaping for $595 a month from just July 2016 through November 2016.
I have a question, and it's not for Joe, and, when I read this, I was confused.
Ditto.
Okay? Probably for the same reason that Alderman Petrakos is confused. This isn't our land. This land is owned by Will County Historical Society. And so what we have here is one governmental agency who should be taking care of their property is asking another governmental agency that doesn't take, that it's, now, if they wish to go ahead and deed that property over to the city of Lockport, I don't have any problem with that.
I thought it was conveyed to us.
It was?
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah,
When?
like in the last 2 years. I can pull it up, we can try to find
Well,
it for you,
if it's
but
been conveyed to us, then, well, I don't recall
maybe it
being on
wasn't
the council
formally
at that time.
adopted. I guess I can look into it.
All I
You
can
know,
say it was before my time.
there's been a lot of discussion in regards to the public landing. We insure it. We kind of went through this investigation in regards to who owns the property. And I remember having the conversations with the Will County and I remember Tom getting involved. And I thought it came out that the city owns. We talked to Ron Kaniva and we did some research and that the city was responsible. We insure it. You know, Give Something Back Foundation has done some of those new brick improvements. You know, the Gaylord Association has done some work, and I know, and unfortunately the mayor's not here tonight, he mentioned this to me before he left, that he was talking to Steve Cardamone from the Give Something Back Foundation, that the city was ultimately going to be taking over. I said, well, we can't just jump into a mid-season contract without at least going to council and talking about this. This was an unbudgeted item, but at $500 a month with a few months left, we could probably get it done and then go out for a citywide bid next year and see if we can get even better pricing. Certainly, when we saw the bid results from what the Give Something Back Foundation was paying, we thought that was pretty high. So we went out for some bids. It came back at the $595. You know, at some point, I guess we can do some, we can hold off and do some additional investigation, if you like, in regards to who owns it,
I'm not
but-
comfortable in, somebody's gonna have to take care of it. And if you can show me the deed where that property's been deeded over to the city of Lockport, and in the contract in the contract that we had with, well, we never had a contract with Get Something Back Foundation, the Will County Historical Society.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's going back to 2009, and no, actually, it's probably going back to 2008, and I'd have to go with Alderman Peretta on that one. He's the
Well,
only one.
and I'm-
2008 is before my time also.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's
sure
before all of our
there
time.
was some relationships going on even
Yeah.
before that, once it got redeveloped. I know that they had talked about it before, to give something back, won the award to reconstruct it, and I think they were looking to say they were moving on. They were gonna reconstruct the brick improvements, and they wanted to get out of the maintenance business, and so I certainly understand when they were paying $2,000 a month.
As long as it's deeded to the city, I'm good with it. If it's not
Okay,
deeded to
we
the
can
city,
investigate that.
I don't believe it was done at the same time, but we currently take care of the lights there also.
Our
so
attorney can
the lights are
probably-
ours
Yeah,
too.
we're doing quite a bit down there, so I guess.
Yeah, we should probably figure
Our attorney can probably clarify something here.
There are actually two parcels on which Lincoln Landing is situated. There's a 320-foot by 100-foot parcel that the city owns, and that was acquired from the Will County Historical Society. There's also a 40-foot by 100-foot parcel that's owned by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. The Will County Historical Society has a license agreement with IDNR to use that and incorporate that into Lincoln Landing. The Will County Historical Society has assigned that license agreement to the city. So the city owns about 75% of the property. IDNR owns the other smaller portion, but the city has permission from IDNR to control it, maintain it, and include it in the Lincoln Landing project. So there is ownership there for most of it, and then permission to use the remaining portion.
Is that satisfactory to you?
When did that all happen?
2000, it looks like things started in 2010. It appears there was an agreement between, or among the Historical Society, the Give Something Back Foundation, City of Lockport, National Trust for Historic Preservation. Looks like Lewis University was involved, several parties, but that seems to be when everything was done. I was asked this question last year, and that's why we looked into it. It was about a year ago, actually, and I think we were dealing with the replacement of the stonework at that point. And it was discovered that there are two separate parcels, and the city owns one, IDNR owns the other.
Well,
And that's the time that I believe we put it on our insurance.
I'm not positive, but I want to believe that the 40-foot by 100-foot is the actual land that is adjacent to the water, which would make sense for the DNR to own. And I thought the DNR has agreement with the Park District for the maintenance of that property.
Well, since we're not sorting it out here, you can get a plat survey, we can figure this out. We just put this in as an action item, or table this, or not, does this need to happen?
I have another comment on it.
Sure.
Obviously, we should figure out,
Yeah, I
who's
think we should
responsible, whatever.
table it.
But if it does become a Lockport thing that we want to address, we've talked in the past about, I know it always comes up to me for Victoria Crossing East, but there are a few other areas that the city is responsible for or hires out Barry. Is it to the time where it makes sense to buy I don't know what it costs, couple $1,000 commercial mower and hire $10 an hour, give somebody local a summer job? A lot of towns do that in some way or another, right? I don't know what all the responsibilities are, but.
We do have some equipment, and we do have seasonal staffing that does cut ponds and things like that.
Yeah, we have areas that we do cut around town. We do have commercial mowers, just being, the landing being what it is in downtown. I thought it would be in our best interest to maybe continue contracting it out, being where it is, and it's kind of kind of a hub of the downtown. I want to make
Professional,
sure.
you're saying?
Look, yeah, I don't want a kid at $10 an hour cutting the grass down there. It's kind of a.
We've even looked at the budget last year in regards to possibly going citywide with contracts versus all inside, and trying to to weigh those conversations internally a couple different times, and it seems to be working the best with a balance of private and public, taking care of
I
certain
mean, for the
requests.
remainder of
I
it.
can give you a list of the areas that we cut. I mean, it's an extensive
It's a lot of
list. And
ponds,
maybe I'll
yeah.
bring that back at council, so you can see the areas that we do cut outside of the areas that we contract out.
And maybe that makes sense, right? For the remainder of this year, once we kind of figure it out, I'm fine with going with Barry.
And Landworks currently is working on a week-to-week basis and being paid by the Give
Yeah.
Something Back Foundation, so that'll continue until we make a
Or we can
decision.
extend that for a while, but I think maybe even if it's a part of the budget conversation, and maybe it's just more knowledge, right? I get calls on the Victoria Crossing side. Actually, it's been much less frequent lately, but I used to get a lot of calls on it. And maybe it's more education for us, but what does the city do? What do we contract out? And then maybe a little bit of an analysis on, is this the right mix? Do we want to look at mowing a few other areas ourselves? I don't know, maybe the budget's the right time or way to go about it. I'm not trying to stand in the way of this project right now, this year. Seems reasonable, but I do think there's kind of some education and discussion that probably should take place.
I can bring that information back of the areas we cut. They do keep a list of what they cut on a week-to-week basis. It's a pretty extensive list, but I'll supply that so you guys can look at it. And I'll also bring the list of the ones that we contract out.
Any chance you can make that into a map?
Sure, I think we could handle that.
Highlighter.
Not me personally, but I
Alderman
could do that.
Petracos' house.
Enough of that, there's enough people thinking that one.
Jason, that kind of
we-
brings up a good point, because there are areas that it's kind of questionable whether or not we actually own that piece of parkway and has never been cut, or the owner doesn't cut it, or if we're the owners, it's
Get a
not-
lot of calls for things to be cut that are on the state right away or in
Right.
the county. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that would be a
So-
great exhibit to have, so you were driving by and saying, that's private, that's county, that's state.
That would, yeah, so, yeah, if we
Joe
had
can
some
work
kind
on
of.
that and respond to everyone in regards to an email, or, we can bring it back to council if we need to as a separate issue. But I think in regards to the Lincoln Landing, do we want to leave it on as an action item and then work on the survey to prove the ownership and/or deed, and finish this year and then go
As
out
far
for a
as I'm
citywide
concerned,
bid?
as long as it's deemed our responsibility, I'm fine with this for the year. I just think it's sort of a kind of budget and educational discussion. We have that separate, right? I'm not trying to hold this up for that
Yeah,
conversation.
this is something that just came out of the blue. That was my question, like, we're
Yeah.
cutting the Lincoln Landing, where'd that come from, and how did
Certainly it'll come
Stones
up-
got replaced by somebody else? It was another lawsuit, so that was the Give Something Back Foundation?
Well, because they were the ones that originally constructed it, so they were the ones involved in the suit to recoup the cost to reconstruct it. So, yeah,
So
they won
now
that
that they
case.
did it, we have the property, are those stones ours?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, technically, let's have more discussion about this.
Yeah.
Is that rock below?
We were just talking, this today was just the landscaping. That's all you're talking.
Just a
Well,
grass
it brings
cutting.
up a lot more questions.
All right.
I say
Okay,
we
so
put it as an action item.
Okay, all right, let's
get
put
you
it on
more.
an action
Very good.
item
Thank you.
for July 20th, okay? Thank you.
I have a question in new business, which kind of goes back to our discussion about that piece of property on State Street, and we were talking about, I would like to know what the heck's going on with Lockport Square. You know,
Are we in
We've
miscellaneous?
lost an entire year of construction, and I'd like to know why we don't have 3 or 4 or 5 more buildings there. And so they could come here on 14 days from now and tell us.
Talking about the commercial guys, the brokers?
Hey, I mean, it's everything was promising a year ago. And there's, I'd like to know what's going on with the negotiations with all these various letters of intent that we have. I want to know why they haven't intended to go ahead and turn over a spade full of dirt. Because now it's kind of getting to the point of, well, did they just buy it as an investment? They're going to hold on to it and sell it to somebody else. I don't know.
You're talking about the main broker, right, not the...
I'm talking about the main guys.
Okay, we can invite them.
I'm done.
Point. good point. Ben, you have something on the new business also?
Oh, yes.
Talk about TCC?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the Transportation Committee, Corridor Committee, that has been in much debate over the last few years in regards to the middle alignment that most of, I think, Lockport is against. We have a meeting set up next week on July 12th to talk to Tollway, IDOT, and Federal Highways Administration about the possible realignment of the middle alignment. So I think it's progress of getting an audience with the right people. Tom and I will be going up to Schaumburg next week to be part of this meeting, and our main goal is to try to get that middle route realigned to either Cedar or the exit at Bruce and 355. So
Can you just write a summary of the takeaways of that meeting and
Sure.
and send it to the group? That's, obviously, I'm sure most of you guys hear about it, but out on the east side, that is a
Big deal.
very, very pressing topic.
You bet.
Okay. Anything else on new business?
Did I read in the paper that the haunted house is having an open house or something coming up next week? Did I read that in the legend? Are we part of that? Is that an announcement?
I'm not aware if they're having anything private.
Because I believe I read in part of the collector card series that they were having.
I think they were receiving people outside. I mean, they don't have occupancy yet on that building, so I don't think
Okay,
they could.
because it kind of was worded like there was going to be an open house of
Yeah.
some sort, and I just was curious what was going on there.
Actually, I talked with John LaFlamboy about that issue because of the fact that there is no occupancies and there are some site issues. And he told me that if he can't, their original intent was that they were going to allow people to go into the first two rooms. And I said, well, that's might not be possible because of your situation with the occupancy. So he had said that if they're not allowed to go inside, then they would just distribute the cards outside.
Okay.
Sounds fair.
Alrighty. I received, does this go with the committee of the whole?
Oh, sure,
or-
the open floor comments, I think we, do we have
They're
stuff?
not.
Actually, the
They
gentleman is
leave?
no longer here. You were
We-
speaking with him, and Darren was.
Ben and
you talk to him
Ben and
already?
I discussed their
Okay,
issue.
so we're all set with that? Okay, alrighty.
I'll make a motion to.
Okay. Wait,
I'll second it.
okay, motion by
Adjourn, that's the word?
JR and Chris, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go.
Any, Nate?
Alice needs 5 minutes.
Alrighty. Shall we go ahead and, you want to take a 5-minute break?
Alice needs 5 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if I need complete 5 minutes. but- Come on.
We are.
Sometimes it's, okay. Sure. Petrakos?
Here.
Capadona?
Here.
Longley?
Here.
Smith is absent. Deskin?
You're probably right.
Vandermeer?
I'm here, yes.
Retta and
Here.
Bartleson.
Here.
7 present.
Okay. We'll go to consent agenda and ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
And take a roll call on those?
Before you do
Oh,
that,
do-
if we could indicate that what's on the consent agenda.
Absolutely,
The
yes.
regular city council meeting minutes from June 15th, the committee of the whole minutes from June 15th, payroll period ending June 19th, and various bills for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion?
Any questions?
I'll second the motion.
I'm sorry, I missed the first.
I made the motion, Darren made the second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Peretta and
Alderman Petrakos?
Deskin.
Yes.
Alderman Capadona?
Yes.
Sorry. Marking it on the wrong sheet. Okay, Gil Oakley.
I vote yes on all matters on the consent agenda except those that pertain to my employer. On those items, in this case, item 4, approval of various bills, I abstain from voting.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Beretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Let's see. Where do we move to at this point? Is it the approval of the minutes?
No, have heard. It's already done.
It's already done. I'm sorry, that's right.
CED one.
Okay, wait, that's, okay. Pam, you're
Yes,
on.
thank you. This item was presented to the Committee of the Whole on June 15th. Sagebrook Development, MI Homes, is requesting a reduction in their letter of credit for a portion of their letter of credit for Phase 1. At the time it was presented, the only remaining item would be the televising of the sanitary mains and the storm sewer. Our development engineering consultant has spoke with the superintendent as of today, and apparently the televising companies are really backed up at this time of the year. And so it's an estimate that it'll probably take another 2 to 3 weeks before that gets completed. However, our consultant has said that proceeding with the reduction is acceptable since the city will have remaining surety since this is part of Phase 1, and that the as-built plans have been reviewed and approved, specifically the manhole elevations. So with that being said, staff would ask the council for a motion to approve Resolution 16-042, which is reducing the LOC for a portion of Sagebrook Phase 1 improvements. The remaining Phase 1 LOC would be $1,049,120.10, because that would include also the 10% surety and then the remaining.
I'll make
Make the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Peretta and Deskin? Second?
I have a comment. I'd just like to make sure that, you know, I know your consultant looked at it. I think I'm just ultra cautious on the letters of credit. I just want to make sure that, you know, whatever is in the surety is still enough to complete with the televising and any other work that needs to be done.
Well, they're also, you know, they're gonna start, they have there's a letter of credit also for the townhomes, and then there's also, they're gonna have to submit, some letter of credit for Phase 2 when that gets going.
Okay, so we're moving this for an action for,
Nope, this is roll call. We're voting.
we are voting, okay, I apologize, okay. See, I had, okay.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Capitona?
Yes.
Delogly?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Beretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carried.
Okay, Amy?
Okay, my first item on the agenda tonight is the 2016 sidewalk program bid letting. On June 29th, the city of Lockport received bids for the 2016 sidewalk program. This project consists of removal and replacement of sidewalk sections throughout town as a part of the city's sidewalk service request system. Meet the criteria that are added to the program. It also includes new sidewalk in Thunder Hill that will be constructed as part of the city's 50/50 program, and a completed sidewalk in the Vintage of Willow Walk to be constructed with bond proceeds from the subdivision in the amount of $5,400. The city received 7 bids for this work, and the lowest bid in the amount of $91,176.50 was submitted by Strata Construction. There was $120,000 budgeted in 2016 for the 2016 sidewalk replacement and ADA project. An additional $40,000 budgeted for potential 50/50 program costs. In addition to the 50/50 program location in Thunder Hill, we also have contacted the LTHS to see if they would be interested in participating. We have several resident requests for the city to construct a sidewalk connection on 12th Street between Lincoln and Garfield for the students to utilize to access the athletic fields. I think this is going to the LTHS board in
July 18th.
Oh, yeah, okay, July 18th. So Ben and I are going to attend and see what they say. So we are requesting that the city award the project in the amount of $91,176.50. And then we are also requesting the authorization to increase the program cost up to the budgeted amount of $160,000 in order to allow staff to take care of any new sidewalk program requests that comes in between now and when the project, when the contractor comes into town to start construction. And then also to take care of any additional 50/50 program requests should the high school decide to participate in this program.
Okay, ask for a motion?
Go ahead.
Oh, so,
We need, somebody needs to make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hang on now. Two people said section. Okay, you made the motion, and we have two.
Beretta.
Beretta, okay.
Go for it.
so some of these, like the Thunder Hill 50/50, right? We talked about that before, but I don't know kind of where it stands. So is this just if they go through with it, or is has everybody in Thunder Hill signed up for this? I guess, how do we bid?
It's just one property. As far as the 50/50 program goes, it has to connect two
Right.
pieces of sidewalk. It has to complete a sidewalk connection.
Yep.
All of the property owners involved have to agree and pay for their 50%. And so with this particular situation, it's just one property owner. He owns a double lot, and he paid his 50% to have this extra gap filled in as part of the sidewalk program.
Okay.
So he's already paid the 50,
Gotcha.
and actually it was an estimate, so if it comes in over, he'll have to pay a little bit
Drop
more.
either way,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the sidewalk program, I think I got it from the letter, but are the specific sidewalk repairs all already accounted for, or are we still? Because I think last year we got some sort of warning that says, "Hey, we're going to take requests until X date." We kind of let residents know, and I don't know if they reached out to you guys.
We
or
have a
not.
deadline. Our deadline is generally in May sometime. That deadline is really, I like to stick to it, but we never do. The deadline is so that I can put the program together and get it out to bid.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. Is like, how do you bid, and then if it's different, because
What generally happens is the program goes out to bid and we don't spend all, it doesn't come out to all the money that we have in the budget. So since we have money left in the budget, what we generally do is we award the project up to the budgeted amount, and then we continue to go out and mark and receive service requests and mark those out and complete those until we run out of money, basically. I don't foresee us running out of, I don't foresee us spending $160,000
well, that's what I was gonna
this
say.
year.
Is we'd almost have to double between
Yeah,
now and when
it's
this
not gonna
starts.
happen. You know, we might spend 120, 130,000, but I don't see us spending 160. But it's nice to have that, just in case we get like a boatload of service requests. What inevitably happens is we go out and mark the locations, and the contractor gets out there and starts removing sidewalk, and then people are like, hey, my sidewalk needs to be replaced too, you know, and then they call in and put a service request in. And it's either do it while the contractor's there, or have them wait for a full year until the sidewalk program happens again next year. So, I mean, if we can take care of it while we're there, we like to be able to add those locations on the spot and do them.
Makes sense.
I'm just a little confused why, in this specific motion that is on the table, why the 12th Street sidewalk is included in this, because what you're kind of asking us to do, so what I would like to do is amend the motion to remove discussion on the 12th Street sidewalk until the meeting with the high school.
Well, okay, but if we don't get an approval until July 18th, and then we have to put it on the agenda again for discussion and approval, then, but the contractor's gonna start like before then we may not, I mean, we could do it either way. The whole purpose of getting pre-approval to add it on is if they go for it, then we can just go ahead and add it to the project. If they don't, then we won't.
Right in their argument, it says, okay, well, you guys already approved it, now you're backed us in a corner.
I read this as contingent upon their.
Right, we
Yeah.
approved
They
the
say no, we're not
50%.
doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
we approved our 50% already.
All right.
So if they say no, they're not gonna participate, then it doesn't get added.
I have a couple questions. Amy, we had this conversation, maybe the council needs to hear it too, about mud jacking instead of just replacing. Can you explain that and where that is in the budget?
We do have money, some of the money in the sidewalk program is used for mud jacking. Generally, it's between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. We don't come to the city council for that contract because it's under the $20,000 threshold. What we do is, when we get the service requests in, we go out and do inspections. And if there's nothing wrong with the sidewalk other than the fact that there's a trip hazard, then we mark it down for mud jacking. And then the mud jacker comes in, and then if he can't fix it, if there's some, reason why, if it's either the lip is too much, or, there's just no way that he can fix it with mud jacking, then we generally have time to remark it and put it on the sidewalk program. But about 50 to 60 sections of sidewalk every year that are submitted for removal and replacement with the sidewalk program are actually sent to the mud jacker, and it's a savings of, to replace the sidewalk, it's 25 square feet at about $6. So it's like a little over $130 a square foot. Mud jacking 1 square of sidewalk is $30. So we're saving $100 a square for each one that we can just mud jack instead of remove and replace. So.
The other question I had is the state used to have the Safe Routes to School program that would apply to the school issue, but they haven't had that program, right?
They do have a Safe Routes to School program. However, the Safe Routes to School program is only for areas of sidewalk in locations close to within a certain radius of elementary schools. Because that 12th Street sidewalk isn't in the correct vicinity of an elementary school. It's actually between the Central High School and the athletic fields.
I thought it was for all schools.
It's not. It's just for elementary schools.
Just for elementary.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have that opportunity and then miss it and do this whole 50-50. Okay. You go to this?
Okay. Okay, the roll call?
Petrakos?
Yes.
Capadona?
Yes.
Delogley?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Retta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carried.
Okay, my second item on the agenda is the 2015 resurfacing project. In May, the City Council approved an additional $300,000 to be added to the resurfacing project, as well as an additional $400,000 of work to be completed in the Prime Business Campus with proceeds from the development letter of credit. We also added $100,000 in work that will be reimbursed by Homer Township Highway Department. On June 29th, 2016, the City of Lockport received 7 bids for the 2016 patching and resurfacing project, and the lowest bid in the amount of $692,732.77 was submitted by Austin Tyler Construction. The engineer's estimate for the project was $950,000. This is a significant savings. We got really good prices. And I kind of saw this coming with the state shutting down their budget, or potentially shutting down their budget, and their construction projects were going to be put on hold. So it was perfect timing to put this project out to bid because we got really good prices for our construction project. $194,000 of the savings was actually savings within the Prime Business Campus. So that will go back into the bond proceeds to be used for bike path and sidewalk and other things in the business park that were not completed as part of the development. About $1,800 of that savings was with the Homer Township Highway Department project. Whatever the final numbers comes in, that's what we will get reimbursed from Homer Township Highway Department. $61,401.23 of that was actually savings with the capital resurfacing and patching project. I looked to see if there were any other streets that we could do with $61,000, but $61,000 is not a lot to complete a whole street. So I also looked at the curb replacement in Kelvin Grove. We had added with the agreement in May to add the additional $300,000 worth of work. We added streets in Kelvin Grove, Putnam and Maitland, that were in the CIP originally for partial reconstruction. Partial reconstruction consists of full replacement of the curb and gutter, and then milling all down 4 inches and replacing 2 inches of binder and 2 inches of surface. Because we added this to be constructed this year with the additional money, we wanted to make sure that we could get it all done. So instead of doing full curb replacement, we just put curb repair, which means instead of replacing all the curb, we go in and mark only the worst sections and replace that. Because we have this extra $61,000, I feel like we can go and replace all, or most, if not all, of the curb. Replacing all of the curb will cost more than just the cost of curb replacement, because removal of all of the curb down the roadway will damage driveway aprons and landscaping. So it will also increase the cost for PCC driveway removal and replacement, HMA driveway removal and replacement, and the sodding. The $61,000 may not be enough to replace all of the curb, but it should be enough to do most of it. But historically, in our resurfacing projects, we have not done all of our driveway removal and replacement. In every section that we are resurfacing, we estimate a certain amount of driveway removal and replacement just in case something gets damaged during the milling process or during curb replacement or whatever. But historically, we don't use all of that driveway removal and replacement. So I think we're going to have additional funds in the estimated cost for driveway removal and replacement to make up the difference in the cost that I have anticipated for doing all the curb and the $61,000. So I feel confident that we will be able to do all of it with the additional money. Okay. So our recommendation is that a contract be awarded to Austin Tyler Construction in the amount of $692,732.77. We also recommend that the City Council authorize expenditure of the remaining $61,401.23 in order to replace more of the deteriorated curb on Putnam and Maitland.
Okay, make a motion to approve.
So move. Yeah.
Second? Second?
Second.
Okay. Tracus, you'll second.
Questions,
Okay.
so,
Can I talk real quick? I just need to abstain from deliberation and from the vote on this. I am interested in supplying some material.
Okay.
Okay.
all right, so the bids came in great and everything. Is Putnam and Maitland, did we resurface the road yet, or is it,
It's being done with this project.
that is part of this?
Mhm.
Gotcha. So you're saying wait till you figure out how much you actually can do, hold off on the curb portion of it, see if there's more funds, so you can replace more curb,
We
but
will-
still not hold up that contractor.
Right. We will save those 2 roads to last, just so that we can make sure that all of the curb that we can replace, we can get done. Those 2 roads will be done last, but they will still be done this year with this project.
So part of my thought process was, all right, there's $61,000 we just saved on the bids, because bid prices came in great, right? Save it for other CIP, but if we can do the concrete at a cheaper price right now and doing all that stuff, I'm for this, so I get it.
Putnam is in the top 5 worst streets in town.
They're pretty bad.
Maitland is in the top 10 worst streets in town. Those streets were put in approximately, well, Maitland was in the mid-60s, and Putnam and Runyon went in about 71, 72, with no,
The information.
how do I know that? How do I
Seriously.
know that? Because
You
I
rode in
grew
the
up
concrete
on,
when
I
you were a
grew
little
up
kid?
on, I grew up on the curve on Reed Street, and Putnam was right out my mom and dad's driveway. So I was up and down that street a few times. Back in those days, there wasn't any sewer. There wasn't any storm sewer. And so what's happened here is A, they did a lousy job in the roads, in the road bed. No, there were absolutely no rules back in those days. And so even if this would have to come in over budget in regards to curbs, we are still saving that money next year. Because we don't have to do that project, which we budgeted for. So, by golly, we've got to do this right, and we've got to do the curbs, and we can't go ahead and replace 90% of the curb or 80% of the curb, and then come back a year or two later, because what's going to happen is, you know, people have lived on a horrible street for far too long, and we need to fix this to the best of our ability as we can.
Alrighty. Yes.
No, go ahead.
No, did you have something to say?
No, nothing.
Tracos?
Yes.
Capitano?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Coretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
6 yeas, motion carried.
Okay. Let's see. Oh. Motion to adjourn. I think
Before
we're done, aren't
make
we?
a motion,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Temp, Joanne reminded me about an activity that we participated in back on June 23rd. We attended a breakfast meeting with the Will County Economic Development, and they were given a year-to-date status of all the economic activity in Will County, and it was just a delight to see Lockport's name mentioned quite a few times among some of the other towns. So Lockport was definitely recognized during that breakfast, a lot of economic activity. And when the meeting was done, a developer did approach us to finish up a potential project that really 2-3 years ago, it just hasn't broken ground as of yet, and potential developments in the future. So, so definitely a lot of stuff happening. So that's what I wanted to say earlier,
Oh,
but I
okay,
was jumping
sorry.
ahead of myself.
Sorry, okay. Very good. Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
okay,
Second.
okay. JR?
All in favor?
Tracus, was that you?
Aye.
Second? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.